Welcome, everybody. It's episode 60. We are back from an extended fall break to reach another milestone of 60. So I just want to clarify before we get too far into this. I can't read a calendar. This has happened multiple times where with the last day of the month being on a Monday, I just kind of forget about that. And so I totally just didn't schedule it. I would love to have like a really good excuse, but there's not. Our excuse is we don't have a secretary to keep track of us. But
ain't that the truth?
Oh well. All right, my name is Josh. Yeah, we're hiring. We don't pay well and we don't offer benefits. But if anyone's interested, shoot us an email at dadsanded@gmail.com.
Yes.
My name is Josh Allen, Tech Integration Specialist for the beautiful Lewis Central Community Schools. So glad to be here. 4 wonderful kids, beautiful wife. Pleased as always to be joined by Devin. Since you were late, I'll let you go first.
I don't know what you mean by late. I was on time for the show.
True. On time for the time that we hit start broadcast.
Okay. Yes, no, I was on time. Devin Schoening, I am the Instructional Technology Program Lead at Council Bluffs Community Schools in Council Bluffs, Iowa. My lovely wife, Erin, also works in our district as an IB or IB-PYP coordinator. And my 2 children, Grace and Claire, are in 5th and 7th grade. No Claire tonight. I don't know what she's doing. I literally just walked in the door from basketball practice. Haven't seen them yet. They were upstairs when I got here. So she apparently must be in her unicorn pajamas already, not ready to come down and introduce. So
that happens. I know the feeling.
Yes.
Cat.
Yes, sir. Brent Catlett here from Kansas City, Missouri area Independence, Director of Technology at Independence School District, and married to my amazing wife, Josie, who's extremely supportive, and I'm blessed to have, and 5 kids, ranging from 10 down to 1.5-ish.
I don't like doing the math either, especially on the random middle of the weekdays. So if you want to get in touch with the show, tweet at us at Dads and Ed. Use the hashtag Dads and Ed at any time. It's always great to see what people are doing in between. So share that all the time. If you missed part of the show, check us out at dadsanded.podbean.com. You can subscribe in iTunes or Google Play. We're also a member of the Education Podcast Network. You can go check us out there as well. So water cooler. First thing, let's talk about EdCamp KC.
Yeah.
So we, Devin and I, made the day trip down to Kansas City to check out Brent's EdCamp KC. EdCamp KC has always held a special place in my heart. It's where we planned EdCamp Omaha on the way back from that. So this is the first one I was able to make in the last couple of years, held at beautiful Truman High School there in Independence. I think, Brent, you said you had 300 and some, around 300 attendees.
Yeah, yep.
I thought it was a fabulous day.
Yeah, I know. I was glad you guys made the trip down. It's always great to see, folks from everywhere, but certainly catch up with you guys in person is great. And, Will Chamberlain, I mean, so many great people. And that's the beauty of EdCamp to me, is just when people converge to talk about things they're passionate about in the realm of education. And so I just don't think you can go wrong with that. I've never met an EdCamp I didn't like. And it was fun to do a little session with you guys on parenting, which was pretty well attended. And I thought we had a great conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was I was able to finally go down to EdCamp KC. I think most times it falls during the first week of basketball practice, and this one it was kind of right before. So lucky enough to go down, and it was great. That session that we did, that we also were able to host at iTech a month or so ago, and hopefully maybe have some conversations just like that at NEDA and some other places. I feel like, that parenting conversation, that intersection of parenting and being an educator has really found a little bit of a niche at some of these places. I think that conversation is not one that typically happens at conferences. And now that we've had it a couple of times, I feel like it's a necessary conversation. I think we have both times we've done it, the conversation's gone in a number of directions, and there have been amazing insights from people that have been there. And I'm really a fan of that session right now that we've been lucky enough to lead a couple of times.
Absolutely, and I think it speaks to the conversation that we have yet to be able to make it through all slides that we have in there, and we only have like 6. So the conversation has been fabulous. I do have to say we have to give a shout out to Dad's and Ed superfan Bill Little. Devin and I finally got to meet him in person. He's a lot nicer in person. He's not as rude as he is on Twitter.
He is a very lovely person when you meet him.
Well, lovely. That makes it weird, but he's nice.
He was so excited, to get to meet you guys in person. So that was super cool. Like a little extra nugget for me as well, and I know for him too. And he certainly is a part of our team in the tech department and helping their setup and take down all that good stuff, right? But just cool that he could participate in it as well, so that's kind of the beauty of that session as well. So here's this dad, a technician, his wife is a teacher in our district, and he gets to sit down and be involved, and have a voice. And so I thought that was really cool. And I know he really enjoyed meeting you guys. As much as he gives you a hard time on Twitter, it's all with great respect.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, and Brent said that it was great meeting him. It was great seeing Will. Lots of folks that I don't get to see hardly ever. And to be able to get down there and have some conversations and see those people was really nice.
All right, so we debated before the show. Do we even bring up like the elephant in the room of topics of the last week that probably has been debated about every single water cooler? But apparently there was election last week. I realized it because I don't have to watch as many campaign videos or campaign ads after the fact, which I think is great. In a big surprise, I think, to everyone, Donald Trump handily won the Electoral College. I think somebody said this is the 5th time that the popular vote was different than the Electoral College. I had no idea that it was that many times. I knew of 2000, I think it was, but other than that, I did not actually stay up the whole night. I was getting exhausted and thought my staying up is not going to change the results of this. I'll figure it out in the morning. But I think on the one hand, I think you really have to respect the office of the presidency, but you also have to respect people's right to protest, which is, for better or worse, what's happening quite a bit now. So in the interest of time, we don't have the rest of the hour and a half to discuss this, although we sure could. Yeah. General thoughts. I'll just widely open that up, and we'll see where this goes.
The thing I've been trying to take that came up a lot, and I think it plays into what we do here. There was all that conversation the next couple days about, how do teachers talk to kids about this, and how do parents talk to their children, about this. And I think that's really an interesting conversation. I had one of my teachers in my district posted something to the effect on Facebook of, if you're a teacher, you shouldn't, if you're not being kind of overtly neutral, then you're doing it wrong, kind of thing. And I pushed back a little bit. I pushed back in that, I think our kids, especially older kids, do want their teachers to be learned, trusted adults. And while I've never tried to convince a kid to, think a certain way, vote a certain way, whatever it might be, I've certainly been open with my kids. I can remember when I was in the classroom and talking to kids about issues. And I think that's important. And it was kind of I was reminded of that a couple of days ago when I had a former student send me a message on Facebook and just say, I remember a conversation we had in 2007 about Barack Obama, and it led me to wanting to go into political science. And, we had this conversation. I think that's why it matters. I'm not sure that we need to be completely neutral.
Kat, your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. I'm gonna kind of come at this a hair different angle for a minute, but I find it right now kind of fascinating with all the chatter, particularly on Facebook, but just in general, Twitter as well for me and all the educators that I surround myself with on both those channels, right? As well as my family digs in a little further on the Facebook side. But it's been a really interesting thing to think about. And I've talked to you guys about how I'm sometimes hesitant to say certain things, and politics is certainly one that is this kind of interesting subject of like, we're not supposed to talk about who we like. And Devin, I stalk your stuff from afar, and I don't chime in much, but I read a lot. Like I'm kind of a avid reader of all things. I love to kind of like soak up what people are thinking and saying and their opinions. And I certainly have an opinion one way or the other, but I sometimes feel like my opinion isn't very valued. So I just kind of back off of saying things. But that's something in my reflection, and where I want to go with this is that I'm literally praying for help in the realm of using my voice to the best of my ability, that God's given me this talent, skill, and says, hey, some folks for whatever reasons might look up to you, right? Or they might be interested in what you have to say about certain things, whether it's this or other things. And so I don't know. So then part of me too is I might not be as versed as I need to be sometimes. So I'm hesitant to make statements around things when I don't put a ton of stock into all of it as well, admittedly. And so I kind of struggle with that too. Whereas when I read up on stuff, Devin, that you post, and I know you're very into it, or I think of Jason from Chicago, and just people in there that are very adamant about stuff, and I respect it. Like, that's just the way I see it. So I just wish people were more respectful of everyone, in the midst of their opinions. And sadly, I don't see enough of that.
I would say that that part there, what you just mentioned, is one of the things that is regularly frustrating to me, is just the lack of empathy for the other side, and always having to be right. This is the worst thing ever. This is the best thing ever. There's no more middle ground anymore. It's either all one way or the other. And I don't know. It's fascinating to, I think that we're in a really interesting time. Like, it's always been us getting the news from somebody else. And we're at that point now where you have to be a lot more skeptical about what you see and what you read. And Brent, you're right. There's certain people that I know are going to post things that are from reputable sources. There's people I know that are going to reshare or retweet anything that leans their direction. And if I was a high school, either librarian or current events or English, like, this is a great time to talk about web literacy and digital literacy. Think about, I've quit scrolling through Facebook, for the most part, because it is just a bunch of random stuff from not necessarily reputable sources.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's, I've been, a push that I've been trying to make lately is trying to utilize the spaces that we have. The Facebook is the one, probably more than any other, but also Twitter and other spaces where we have this amazing opportunity to learn about opinions that are different from ours, if we want to utilize those spaces in the right way. Like, there's a great opportunity there to really lean in and try and understand the other side. What I've been trying to say is that if I want to learn about the other side, it doesn't mean that I give up my convictions. It's not that I have to give up my perspective to be able to do that. But I do want people to be a little better, like you just said, Josh, and Brent, you mentioned it, better about the things that we share. I was talking to a friend today, and essentially said, I'm looking for bias, right? I try not to share. I share things that certainly validate maybe my viewpoint sometimes. But if I only read things, if I only posted things from the Huffington Post or Think Progress, or if I'm a Republican, the only things I share are from Conservative Daily or the Red State Watch website. I mean, there's obvious bias there, and that's where we have a hard time. If so many people that just share those things, and they're not trying to find somewhere in the middle, or at least be open to the other side. George George Kuros shared an article post with us when we were at iTech called "The Other Side Is Not Dumb," and I've been sharing that a lot because it has made me much more thoughtful about having those kinds of conversations with people and understanding that, just because I believe in what I believe, it doesn't mean the other side is wrong or the other side is dumb.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, in the interest of time, we do need to head on, but that is I think some of those points that you brought up, I think we can apply to a lot of different situations and a lot of different topics. Whether it's something as serious as chocolate vanilla, or not as serious as chocolate vanilla, or politics. So,
Right.
all right, dad moment of the week. So my dad moment of the week is that Brent is Mr. Superintendent, going to school, yada yada yada. I had to take one class for 11 months to get my Iowa teaching license, and I crammed all 11 months into the last 3 months. But by God, tomorrow's the final day, and I turned in all 4 assignments. I was there until 8:30 on Friday night, which if you want to have a hop on Friday night, go hang out with our janitor while he's doing some cleaning. Great guy. Love you, Mike. You're awesome. But so then Saturday morning, I get a text from my buddy that says, "Hey, you want to go to the Nebraska game Saturday night?" That went over well at the house. Being gone all week, then leaving to go to a football game and not taking any of the kids. So I'm excited to be done. I'm excited to come home before supper time. I was going to say before the sun goes down, but that doesn't really happen now. So I'm just excited to be a dad. I've put off a lot of stuff until now, like books to read and like getting in shape. So I got a lot of work to do. So anyway, that is mine. Catlett, you want to go next?
Sure. I kind of retired from basketball coaching. I know, Devin, you're firing up right as we speak, and I retired from it temporarily for sake of the kids, being little and being home and being available. And anyway, my little guy Charlie did a basketball camp. He's 5. He did basketball camp. It was like a Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday morning thing. And then now there's potentially this league that follows it. And I have been so worried and hesitant as a dad about how I'm going to handle all of this, because as much as I love sports, there's a part of me that is also kind of like, if my kids don't do it, I'm okay with that too. Like I've always said, I don't want to be this dad who lives vicariously through their kid trying to be the next, LeBron James or something. While I love the sport and or sports in general, I don't care what it is. Golf is another one. There's many of them, right? But so anyway, so I'm on the verge of perhaps my wife signed me up as potential coach for these little guys. And the youngest I've ever coached in basketball was 3rd grade. And as I was watching these guys through this little camp, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, our attention span is so small, and how would I handle this? And, so anyway, it'll be interesting to see how it grows, but it was fun to see him taking to it because I really honestly have not exposed him to a whole lot, and you can judge me on my dadhood, but I haven't really pushed any of that sort of stuff with the kids so much as I have just been pushing family and us being together. And that might be riding bikes. It might be raking leaves. It might be reading books. It might be throwing a ball around or shooting at a plastic hoop that's 3 foot tall. But so I don't know. It's just interesting because one of the things I worry about, you guys, is just, I've got a lot of kids, as you know, and I'm worried that we're going to chase one kid around to all these events and the others aren't going to get that same shake. And so part of me has almost been hesitant to get them involved in anything. So I'm nervous. I'm apprehensively nervous about, will these guys call me and say, yeah, we need a coach. And my son signs up and goes for it. So it'll be interesting, but it was fun to see him enjoying it. And at the same time, he was completely clueless, which was a little difficult for me as a dad to take.
Yeah, even at that age, though, I can think about, I think some of my high school girls I might have described as clueless the last week, also in the first week. So maybe
Yeah.
age isn't as much of a factor as you think. But my dad moment of the week, and man, it's been a heck of a couple of weeks since we've talked. But I'm gonna go back to the election, I think, a little bit. My girls being 10 and 12, and being in our house. I mean, Aaron and I are both pretty in tune and try to stay up on what's happening politically, and we certainly lean one way, so that's understandable. But they really took an interest in that, and they paid attention, and it was tough waking up the next morning and telling them who won and who lost. They were pretty bummed, and even had a couple of them just talking about how they were kind of scared. They didn't know what was going to happen. I think they have some legitimate concerns about the direction of our country and what it means for friends of theirs. I know that Gracie in middle school has lots of friends who are Hispanic, and there's some kids at her school who are Muslim, and I think she had some legitimate questions about what that means for them, and that's a big deal. We've kind of talked about, when they said a little bit about being scared here, I said, here's the unfortunate thing. As a middle class white family, I don't know how much changes for us on a day-to-day basis, other than we know people. We care about people. We're empathetic towards people. So, while it probably doesn't impact us necessarily on a day-to-day, it certainly does impact what we believe in. So I was proud of them for taking an interest, and boy, some great conversations around here the last week or so.
Hey, going back to Brent's thing about coaching, I just want you to know that I am coaching third grade basketball this year. This is the first time. I guess I coached basketball a couple of years ago, but to your point though about kids and all of that, our kids enjoy it, and I have coached both of the older ones, just because they love it, and I didn't want to coach basketball. I don't really want to get any older than this, because parents start to care way more than what they really should. But my 8-year-old actually talked me into it. So
yeah, and trust me, being back in the gym, because I feel like it's been a long time, I was just chomping at the bit. I was just like, let me have at this. And of course I'm sitting there, and not that they did a poor job, and I'm kind of like, okay, like, what are y'all doing over there? They have these stations set up, and I'm just kind of like, let's go, let's move the right. Kids that are young need that. They need the ball moving. They need activities going nonstop, and so that's something that, like, whether it's third grade or certainly at 5 and 6, like, that you're gonna struggle to keep their attention. So I kind of look forward to the possibility of it cranking back up for me.
That should be fun.
But nervous as well.
Absolutely. Quick shout out to Joe Mazza. We are on his TV set tonight.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal. Just kidding.
It was a giant picture of bread, though, so I don't know.
Whatever looks good. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We are pleased to be joined tonight by Clay Reisler. This week, Clay is sponsored by Spotted Cow Beer from New Glarus Brewing. Spotted Cow is the official beer of the Dads and Ed show when we do our broadcast from Wisconsin, because you can only buy their beer in Wisconsin. So check out everything New Glarus has to offer at newglarus.com. Clay, you're going to have to unmute yourself because I muted you. But welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, it's great to be here. That was an awesome intro.
I do what I can.
Spot on right now with his sponsorships.
He is.
I actually kind of Googled some of your past ones, and I think the gentleman in the red was actually sipping a beer, and I thought about bringing it here, but then I thought, well, maybe I'm pushing, the proverbial barrier as the first timer here. So
you would. I think here would be the weird thing. So remove my man card if we like. That was a root beer. But you would not be the first. You would not be the first to have a beer. Chris Lehman, did Chris have a beer?
Yeah, Chris was last show. Chris was. Yeah.
Well, I just thought maybe I shouldn't do that. But,
it would. It definitely wouldn't be the first one.
No, absolutely not.
I would, because I kind of run the controls, I really have stayed away from it because things go haywire enough that I don't need to add to it. But definitely during the editing process, things happen. So
absolutely. Yep. That's actually how we got started with the old beverage group.
That's right. So one of the one of the Voxer groups, which Devin and Brent don't drink, so I don't invite them to this kind of stuff. But Clay and we met out in Cedar Rapids. Brent, you're an iPad U speaker alumnus. That's where Clay and I met this summer.
Yeah, the year before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they had to set the bar low. They didn't want to go too big too soon. So I don't know who they have this summer, but it's probably gonna be fantastic. So yeah, we were sitting around and
can I bring up how we got started?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it was probably a year and a half ago. I actually just sent a text of a beverage that I was consuming to 5 teachers, and all of a sudden it just kind of blew up that we have sent, I think, 180 some pictures of different stuff, and the key is pictures of, say, your glass of wine with the skyline in the background or whatever. Try to outdo someone. So I'm sitting in the booth eating with these people. Josh was a part of it, and Stacy Beamer, and I go, not to be rude, but I gotta take a picture right now. And so I'm gonna be on my phone a little bit. And then they asked, and then we just kind of started our own. So that's how it works. Yeah.
I just did look up in our group the last one that was sent. I was at the Hy-Vee here in Papillion, and the manager comes up to me and goes, "Oh, you're so famous." And like I've seen this guy a few times. I'm not on a first name basis with him, and I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Have we discussed this before?" And he sets this Imperial Stout up on the screen up next to me.
Yeah, I remember that.
And basically the guy on the box looks like me. And I'm just like, wow, and that's a little creepy.
And he said free consumption for 6 months, and you're like, all right.
Yeah. No, I did not get to take that home for free. Anyway,
That's
all right. That's what we get. That was a good sponsor, though. That spawned a little bit of conversation. I gotta. Clay,
go ahead.
Tell us about yourself.
Clay Reisler. I've been teaching since 1993 in a variety of situations. Family man. I have a 17-year-old son who's warming up food in the microwave because, we've not eaten in 20 minutes. That's going on right over there. I have a wife who's also in the education business. She's a 4th grade teacher. So I have a summer wife and I have a school wife. So those are definitely 2 different types of people. And I've been coaching football. I haven't missed a football season since 1991. And kind of just got passionate about iPads in 08. Excuse me, iPods in 08, which transformed into iPads. And that's me, church-going guy. Camp Luther guy, was a counselor at one time. Camp Luther in northern Wisconsin, tremendous place. That really shaped me on being a teacher. So that's it. That's kind of who I am. I mean, there's more, but I mean, we got a short, we got barriers,
So before we get into any of the education stuff, how did football season go?
Okay, so I knew you were going to bring that up, and I'm bracing for it. We lost more games this year than we did in the last 3 years combined.
So Clay, before you get going, let me stop you real quick. So I coach girls basketball here in varsity. So when you say we've lost more games than we lost in the last 3 years,
yeah,
we're going on a stretch. We took over just 3 years ago or so now, where we've won 5 games in 3 years.
Okay.
So you know what? There's no need to apologize. Put out there like, hey, we've only lost as many, last year as many we lost in the previous 3. I know all about losing, so no need to sugarcoat it.
The thing that I guess in the 4 years, so my sons go to a Lutheran high school, and we play 8-man football. So the history of 8-man football in Wisconsin is in the 1970s. There was lots of them, 50, 60 of them. Currently, we're at about 23, 24, and we truly aren't viewed as real football, to be honest with you. We don't have a playoff yet. We're going to have one in 2018. But we really try to focus our team on building young men to be better Christian, better servants, better leaders, better godly men. And the great thing about that is if you do lose a game, you can focus your attention on other things than the wins and losses. And so, yes, we lost some games, but I'm right there with you. It's never been about that. In fact, we don't ever even talk about it.
Right.
But you know, from a person who's got a little testosterone, you still want to win. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So, but yeah, it's been eight-man football is tremendous. I remember seeing it. I used to live in Valentine, Nebraska, and there wasn't 8-man there, but in Springview there was 6-man, and so yeah, football's great.
One of the things that I want before we get off football, I do want to bring up. You and I were talking before, in the last couple of weeks as we've been preparing for this, and talk a little bit. We just shared our dad moment of the week, and you and I were talking about one that you had here in the last couple of weeks for your last game.
Yeah, I guess what I've really taken some concerted effort in. I have been coaching my whole life, and I was coaching everybody else's kids before I was coaching my own. And no disrespect to any dad that coaches, but I think there's conflicted interest there. If you're coaching and your son's on the team, you're always looking out for it. Your kid, which is, they come first. But I've really tried to focus in on coaching everyone, just as I would have a classroom. But my dad moment was my son, who is a senior, quarterback, cornerback, and I have a son who's a junior, O lineman, D lineman. We walked off the field, and before we left, we stopped on the field, and we had our moment, which was basically just sat and hugged and cried. And for that 3 to 4 minutes, it was about my kids. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to tear up a little bit. It wasn't easy to walk off that field because I know I will never coach one of my kids again. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty cool to have a moment just with them because everybody else had left the field. So, I poured my heart and soul into coaching everybody, which included them for 18 years. Not 18, but we were throwing base. We wore out the backyard with baseball pads, right. Just like you guys are doing. But for that moment, it was just us, and I will remember that for a long time.
That's awesome. Clay, I was just kind of talking about that before we got you on about the pickle, because I've coached a lot of years before I started, knocking out children left and right, and kind of retired.
I don't know.
I got 5, and so
that's a relay
busy
team
household.
Plus an extra.
Yeah, it's a starting team, 5.
Plus you got an alternate. That is sweet.
Yeah.
In case somebody pulls a hammy.
That's right.
Right.
Toss the next one in.
Yeah. So I'm officially done there, just for the record, but surgically. So it's just been an interesting ride because when I fell in love with teaching through coaching years ago, like I feel like 100 years ago now, it seems like. And it's interesting. Like I know as you followed up at iPad U that year after I was up there, it's like I've just hearing you speak there is just really resonating with me about kind of some of the why factors and why I got into it in the first place was about sometimes not having that connection to the kids. And I thought I could do a great job of being a non-biased person and kind of treating everyone fairly and equally. And so that has been, I kind of mentioned this earlier in the show, that it's a little bit of a stress of mine is that would I be too hard on my boys or girl? Because I grew up with a dad that I had to drive home with, and I was the point guard and I was the, pitcher and the shortstop. And so there was just a lot of, I don't regret any of that in a way, like say with my dad, but I think back to a lot of those things, and he was definitely harder on me. And so and not that was a bad thing or anything, but that can be detrimental. Right. And so it's great to hear you talk about that balance and how that, kind of worked out for you in the end and the moment you were able to share. It's really cool.
Thank you. It was awesome. I know it took me probably 6 years to figure out, don't talk about the game while we're driving home. It just is not going to go well. And we've gotten a lot better at it. And it seems to be like the last 2 years, both Brock's junior and senior year, we've just figured it out kind of, and we're trying to enjoy it. And so that's all I got to say about that.
Can I jump into one other thought I had too? So I grew up in Omaha and went to Catholic schools, and then worked and taught and was principal in a couple different Catholic schools. And I kind of made the jump into the public system. And so I'm curious to hear your side of, kind of, you mentioned it's a Lutheran school, and you mentioned earlier, you're a godly man, and then teaching that to kids. And I think that's very awesome. And we haven't had a lot of guests on here that on the show, we've had a lot of public school educators. And so I'm kind of curious to know where some of your passion lies in that, and the advantages and pros and cons of what you see there.
So just so you know, I have a foot in both forums. So I teach in a pretty large public high school. I coach in a very small parochial school, and my wife teaches in a medium-sized parochial school. So I guess the one thing that I can tell you about being in a parochial/Christian school is that when discipline arises, there's always a constant of what we fall back to on what's right and wrong. And that's the Bible. That's I can tell you the very first time that I got into a disagreement with a young man that I was coaching at Lutheran High School, I was prepared for what I normally receive in the public school, which is opposition. Well, this is what I believe is right, what you believe isn't right. And that wasn't there. And I thought, wow, that's the difference. And I'm not saying that it can't happen in the public school, but there's an absolute on what's right and wrong when you're in the parochial school or a private school who may, accept only a certain amount of people or whatever. I don't know if I'm clearly stating that right. The biggest thing for me is coaching at a Christian school. I'm able to share a bigger gratitude of servanthood because of what Christ did for us. And that servanthood goes a long ways in our society, because our 15, 16, 17-year-old boys, they're not in the servanthood mode for the most part. For the most part, it's, what am I going to get? And I'm not talking about my own kid. I'm talking about schools in general, because truthfully, we just handed out, and tomorrow's going to be our 5th of 6 days. We're handing out thousands of iPads. And I got a comment from somebody, well, this isn't the newest iPad. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I'm not saying that's everybody. And the Lutheran high school is not perfect, but I feel there's a sense of servanthood, gratitude, thank you for spending your time here, all that kind of stuff. On the flip side, it's taken me a long time to really try to be that light in the public school. And that's just being kind. Seriously, we're in a school of about 1,100 people, and I try to say good morning while we're walking down the hallway, and people aren't used to that. They want to look away, or they want to look at their phone. But I want to recognize people, and I'm trying to learn people's names because they're important. And I probably wouldn't do that if it weren't for my beliefs and for what I think is right of truly treating people as individuals. So I don't know if that's too sappy, but I'm telling you, that's kind of what I balance. And I'm much more, I don't preach, but I'm much more open. And I like the fact that when people swear, they'll go, oh, I'm sorry, because that's important. Now, I'm a sinner just like everybody else. So it's not like I'm sitting here going, hey, you're awesome, Clay, because you ain't. But I'm just saying that as public educators, we can really have an influence morally and ethically without preaching, but just how we act. So does that answer your question? Is that
yeah, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to, and then we'll jump into some iPad talk, but it goes back to a little bit what we were talking about prior, in the water cooler segment about the election and treating people with empathy, and how do we be open to viewpoints without, without saying we're right and you're wrong, or without kind of being, pious. So I think that's a great thing to take. I'm glad you answered the question that way. Let's talk a little bit about iPads, though. You talked about the rollout of some iPads and handing some out. Tell us a little bit about your journey with iPads, and why you think they are a tool that's beneficial to learning.
You bet. So here's the story of Pulaski School District. We're a rural school district. And in 2008, I went to the TIES conference in Minneapolis, and I played with an iPad or an iPod, and got home and I wrote a grant, and I got 6 of them, and I thought it was the most awesome thing in the world. Then the next year, I had 30 iPods, and I started working with 6 computers and all that kind of stuff. And it just has kind of snowballed, and I've had a knack for it, to use it, to integrate it, to stop using it just for projects, and all that kind of stuff. So in our school district, we truly have struggled to get devices. Okay, we have had 2 failed referendums, and what we have done is we have tried to scrape funds together, and our seniors are getting iPad 2s, if you can believe it, for 1 year, and we're leasing everything else. And we, for the very first year since 2008, I mean, this has been a serious journey. Every kid is starting to walk around with an iPad, and for me, it's like a huge blessing to see that. Can't believe it's actually happening. And what I'm really thankful for is that we have done so much teacher preparation, okay? Teacher preparation in the fact that they are so locked in on how to use them that I think instead of just giving devices, we have really just prepped them, and man, it's really going well. Why did we choose iPads? That's a really good question. There was some contention 2-3 years ago when we decided to go the route, but we wanted to truly innovate education, and we felt if we could get better, if we could get better papers, then we should go with Chromebooks, and we didn't want better papers. Now, I love Chad Kafka, if he ever watches this, okay? Chromebooks have an awesome place, but we as a district said, this is what we're gonna do. And so we truly wanna innovate creation, consumption, critical thinking. We wanna do all of that. The biggest one that people knock on iPads is collaboration, but we're finding ways around with that, especially with the open-in option that now iOS 10 and used to have. That's starting to work. We're doing AP Bio on Wednesday, where we push and explain everything project up into the cloud, and then we're going to bring it down to each kid's iPad. They're going to do something with it, and they're going to pop it back up. I mean, so that whole thing, well, you can't collaborate, that's kind of going away too now. So we truly wanted to change the way we do education. Papers are still important. We still have computers, but we want every kid to have an iPad. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, real quick follow up with that, just because I think it's something that we all struggle with sometimes. You talked about, getting teachers ready to go and trained, and that's going really, really well. What's going well about that? Like, what are you guys doing that's making that a positive process?
Okay, one thing that I think we're doing really well is what we call Apple Core. And Apple Core is a group of 18 to 20, maybe we're only 12 to 18 teachers, and we had to apply. And we are doing after school stuff, okay? And we have logged hundreds of hours of our teachers doing after school, before school PD. Everything is based on the 4 C's. And the one thing that I credit our school board for doing is if a teacher does enough hours, you get to get 2 personal days. You get to earn those things. And that has kicked some serious tail. Like, time is more important than giving me $80 for going to PPGs or whatever we used to call them. It's that time element, and our school board saw that, and they decided to embrace that. So what happens is you get your 10 sick days, but instead of only having 2 personal days, you could actually get 4. And people have loved it and have just sucked onto it. And we're doing a great job of teaching, and we're also doing a great job of continuing to have teachers go ahead and get that.
Very cool.
You know, one of the things I think is really cool that I've seen you do is just your blog, iPad Addiction. I'll tweet it out here in just a second. I love the term Sharo. I think that is genius, and one that I have completely stolen and will continue to steal from you. But a lot of your blog and a lot of the things that you and I have talked about, you know, since we hung out in Cedar Rapids, is just about like process and productivity. Talk about, you mentioned some of the things that you're doing, and the Explain Everything is a great example of it. Where did I don't know if it's a passion, but you know, the process and productivity from the outside seems like it's really, you know, an important thing for you. Where does that come from?
We've always been about digital workflow, and I as a teacher, I probably don't show it. Maybe I do. I'm a pretty intense guy as far as like, I want stuff done. I want stuff done now. And that is all as efficient as possible on an iPad, how it can go up, do this. You know, we just jumped on Canvas. We're in our second year of Canvas, which is LMS. But I just want it to be as efficient and quick as possible. And I guess I've tried to, on my blog, show people what are the steps that I'm actually doing to get this done. Because it's easy to say, and you know, there's lots of people that say, well, you could do this. Well, I remember starting a blog that is no longer anymore called recessduty.wordpress.com. And I was kind of just getting started when Free Tech for Teachers was getting started back in 2008. And he might have been a little bit before. And I said to myself, you know what, I don't want to be just like him. He's putting out, you could do this, could do this. And I said to myself, I'm only going to do what I'm going to do, what has been done in our classroom. So literally everything that I have blogged about has been everything that we have done, tried, failed at, altered, whatever. So my passion for workflow and productivity is I want to share how we're actually doing those things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That is, I don't know, maybe I stole that from you, but that's one of the things that I've thought a lot about too, is not talking about what you could do and talk about what you have done or what you have seen done, because I think that's a huge shift. And I talk about that with our instructional coaches too. I would rather them say, this is what we've done, than me come in and say, this is what you could do. So,
right.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't get me wrong. I love Free Tech for Teachers and I look at it. But I couldn't personally teach 5 math classes and keep up with blogging about all the things I could do. So honestly, in 2008, that's why I started to just do what we have done.
But I think, to your point though, like the Free Tech for Teacher type websites, there still needs to be someone who floats ideas that we can start brainstorming and pick up and do something about. So, you know, I can get ideas that then I can go and actually do in the classroom from things like that. But I think you're right. If you're talking to a teacher who's worried about standards and all this other stuff, it's nice when you say, this is what we've done.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So Clay, one of the things that we do on the show is we ask every guest this question as kind of their exit ticket. And it's kind of the staple of our show. And it's just around the idea of, essentially, how has being a dad made you a better educator and vice versa, this kind of cross section of that?
How has being a dad made me a better educator? Instantly it comes to mind patience. I think often of how I have to be patient here and I have to be patient at school And as I just told you, I'm a somewhat intense man and want things done this way. So there's a conflict there. I would also say that being a dad has changed my views a little bit on schoolwork that goes home. And I'll tell you why. I was the dad who sat right here at this table, which I'm sitting at right now. And my son sat right here. And now, since 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, I never have to tell them to do their homework. But there aren't parents who are doing that. And so when I talk about processes with teachers, I think, all right, someone might not be at home helping them through this process. That's why I really like Canvas. We do some of those instructional videos. We don't videotape kids to death. But so patience and the fact that, not everybody has a dad sitting at home or a mom sitting at home waiting for them to make them a good meal. And that also kind of drives how I say hello to everybody, or try to, and take an interest in Allison, who has the craziest haircut ever. But you know what she wants to do? She wants to be a tattoo artist, and I've gotten to know her, and she's fantastic. What a thought-provoking, and she's going to graduate at semester, and she's going to go on to school. So being a dad has taught me patience. It's taught me, let's think outside the box, because not everybody's house is just like ours. And you might have heard commotion going on right now. I mean, we don't live in a very big house, and we got high schoolers getting stuff ready for tomorrow. And so maybe there was background noise. I have no idea. But that's kind of what kids are experiencing too. Sometimes I just look at our hallway when kids are walking down. I go, what are these people bringing today? What happened yesterday that just didn't go so well? So I don't know, I kind of rambled there for a second, but man, being a dad, it changed my whole life on when just looking at other people's kids and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Clay, we do appreciate you taking time out of your evening to hang out with us. We have a few other things that we need to wrap up. Are you able to stick around, or is it your turn to use?
No,
I didn't know if it was your turn to use the microwave or not.
Did you hear that, by the way?
No.
There was a missing iPad charger. Hey, I'm just being real. This is my life.
We do this every now and then. If you notice, this is the recording studio that didn't get picked up from earlier today, and there's a couple dollhouses on the other side, so it's all good. It's all good.
But that's being dads and ed. It's we're trying to balance all this, just taking care of kids and wife, and also trying to add to our profession, which I wish more people would do, because we want to move the whole body forward.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna talk about a blog post, article, or book, and a video or YouTube channel. So I'm gonna throw that out there for you. If you can come up with one, great, chime in, and we'll get started with ours. So, Devin, you have the blog post, article, or book for the evening.
Yeah, hey, kind of was going to choose, I had a few that I was going to choose from, but the one that I'm going to share, and I'll tweet it out right now to the hashtag, goes with the election theme from earlier, and it's called "How We Broke Democracy," and it was on Medium, and it's the real crux of the piece is how social media is impacting our beliefs and our empathy, and creating these filter bubbles, and maybe dividing us even more than we think. And so it's a really fascinating piece about how this election revealed that very, very clearly to people. And I think the call to action in that, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, is how do we utilize these spaces to connect, and do it in a positive way where we can learn from each other and understand each other a little bit better, and really listen and interact and engage with people instead of using them to just be divisive. So I thought it was timely and interesting. So I tweeted that out, "How We Broke Democracy." It was on Medium.
Well done. Clay, do you got one to throw in?
Sure. I love faketicketgenerator.com. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not.
Okay, so I'm gonna tweet this out. And the hashtag is Dads and Ed.
Yep.
So here's what I like about Fake Ticket Generator. Use it about twice a year, and I was consider using it this coming day tomorrow for our lunch and learn. But you can create fake tickets that look like the old Ticketmaster, which I went and saw Motley Crue when I was 16 at the Unidome. You know what I'm saying? So and truthfully, when you hand these to teachers, they will bring them back to you, and it's pretty awesome. But there's lots of different things. You can change the color. You can make it look very real. So Fake Ticket Generator is a great way to encourage people to join your PD or to get kids involved with, hey, in a day we're going to have a monster thing going on. Here's your ticket. So
nice. I might have to use that this week.
Did Clay ask what the hashtag was? Like, Josh, did you check this guy out before he?
Dude, he's double checking. It's his first night on the show.
Okay,
we don't get it right. We've been here for 60 shows.
You know what? I think that's a valid claim that he's just made.
I know. I'm trying to stick up for you, buddy.
And so I apologize immensely. And I don't know if you take man cards away. Maybe you do that on this show. I'm not sure.
After Devin's root beer.
But I apologize immensely.
No, that's all good. We're worldwide, but Clay doesn't know us. You know?
Don't listen to Brett.
Worldwide? I think at last notice, I think I saw 3 viewers. So yeah, one's in Sri Lanka, one's in Canada, and one's here.
Worldwide doesn't mean that like there's 500 people overseas. It can just be one, and it counts.
That's right.
I know. And that was no diss. I've just said, I looked at all, okay, for real, not to carry this on, but I looked at all the guests you had before. They got multiple books. Dude, I'm just a teacher from a small town trying to make a difference. You guys want me? I'm like, wow. I know it's been a layoff. Hard to get guests, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a tough month. No,
and we'll just follow that up. No, the thing is, like we know, a lot of different people. Some people, are kind of like you, where one of us has been able to spend some time with you and really got to know you and really appreciate you. Like we've always said from day one, this is about the 3 of us being able to hang out together, and we'll invite a smart person to come in and join us and make the show better.
Right.
And it's not about, how many people are watching or who's on the list. Like, we had Greg Doyle on from the whatever his Daily Star, Indy Star, whatever it is now.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff is really cool, but it's just as important to hear what you're doing.
Yeah.
And to learn from you. It's to be honest, the viewer stuff we don't really care.
I know. I was just playing around. I mean, I was trying to cover my ineptness of not knowing the hashtag. All right. You want to know something though, Josh?
Yeah.
I didn't even know who you were before Cedar Rapids. Just like I didn't know Matt Lee before. Yep. And now Matt and I Google Hangout for 1 hour every month and just talk about what's going on. And I don't think we do that enough to get outside of our district. You just get so locked into what you're doing. And honestly, this has been great. I've learned 2 things, and it's been an awesome conversation. It really has.
No, and I think that's the thing. And Devin and Brett and I have talked about it. Devin and I talked about this on the way to Ed Camp a couple weeks ago is, conferences, that's what this is about, is building those relationships so we can do stuff like this. And, Clay, you and I had the same conversation that Devin and I had. We talked about how, when we first started going to conferences, we, sat in our room, watched TV, didn't know what to do. And now it's like, okay, let's go do something. Let's go, meet somebody new. And, really, Clay, you and I mean, at iPad U, it was definitely, we were together a lot. And that's what makes it valuable. So
absolutely. Yep.
We digress. Devin, no, not Devin, Brent.
Yeah, so real quick shout out to Bill Little, super fan of the show. He says that to Clay that all of us have lost our man cards a long time ago. So no sweat. So okay, so I got a YouTube channel. I'm gonna go with my favorite is Shots of Awe, AWE, and it's with a fellow by the name of Jason Silva. He's on Twitter at Jason Silva, spelled SILVA. And just a lot of thought-provoking things that he posts about and shares different things. I think Dean Shareski at NEDA might have been the first time he showed the one of awe, and then I kind of got hooked on it, and I've subscribed to the channel ever since, and just love some of the stuff he puts out. One of my, sorry, thought someone was breaking in.
Devin was.
Yeah. Anyway, typical. But so I really like his stuff. I think sometimes there's parts of it like it's kind of over my head, to be honest. But then there are other times where I really, from an inspirational standpoint, or get me thinking about things. I love his stuff. So I just tweeted it to the DASNet hashtag, and I think it's a good one.
Nice. Clay, you got a good video YouTube channel that we need to know about?
A good YouTube channel. Well, I wouldn't say a YouTube channel, but I continue to find people not understanding YouTube playlists, and I use them all the time. What, are you laughing?
No, because you're right on.
Oh my God. YouTube playlists, like I live and die by those guys. You know, you can make audio, 10-minute learning opportunities, like I'm going to use tomorrow in an Apple car. YouTube playlists. Our art teacher didn't even know about them. He's like, I'm tired of the radio. I'm like, well, let's make your own channel, so to speak, with YouTube, because everybody owns it, because we're all Google Apps for Education or Google Suites. So that's what I'm going to shout out at, is like, let's continue to promote the easiness of YouTube playlists.
No, I am right there with you. I was laughing because I have the same conversations on a weekly basis. All right. Mic drop time.
Good, Josh, mic drop it.
All right. So having a contested election last week is kind of a slow pitch softball lob for this segment. I really don't care who you voted for, which actually continues the theme of the first one that I did. But I do hope that those people who voted against Trump because of how he acted continue to act in a way that is okay to be viewed by a younger audience, one of the talking points of the Clinton campaign. You have the right to be upset. You have the right to protest, but a large enough group of American voters disagree with you and Trump got voted in. That's kind of how democracy works. So go out and do something to make change. Don't just post about it on social media. Gentlemen, Clay, it has been a fantastic evening. We are back in 2 weeks. I did double check that before saying it. Corey Dahl, who is a superintendent here in Nebraska, one of our favorite people that we've known off technology for a number of years, is going to join us. Clay, thanks again. Hey, anytime you want to come down to Nebraska, you're more than welcome to come back.
We're actually rolling down there. My son is going to do a college visit to UNL and then to Seward. Nice. So I'm going to try to look you up as we roll through.
Absolutely.
I do appreciate the conversation and you guys taking an interest in what we're doing. I'm going to go back and look at some of the things that you guys are doing too. And if there was any exterior stuff going on in my house, I apologize, but that's the way it is. So
no, it's all good. All right, gentlemen, we will see you all in 2 weeks.
Awesome. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Yep. Thanks.